Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Just Law on IQRA TV. I'm your host Ilyas Bulbulia and I'll be with you for the next hour. As our regular viewers are aware, on Just Law we normally discuss an area of law which is of interest to you, our viewers. Secondly, more importantly, Just Law is a live show, so whatever questions you have on any aspect of English law, you're able to call in on the number that appears at the bottom of your screen and ask us the questions that you have. And inshallah, hopefully on the show, I will be able to give you some guidance in relation to the questions or concerns that you have. Now on this show, I should be able to deal with most aspects of English law, matters ranging from immigration law matters, criminal matters, family law matters, personal injury law matters, whatever they are, as long as they relate to English law, I should be able to give you some guidance in relation to your concerns. Now, just before we get going, obviously it's a live show, so we're not able to take very detailed information from you live on air. If it transpires that I need to speak to you in a lot of detail, then I'll ask you to leave your number with the control room and I will give you a ring off air. Secondly, just before we get going, if it transpires that I need to look at your documents before I can advise you, then again I will ask you to leave your number with the control room and then arrange for you to send your documents to me, and then I can have a more detailed discussions with you off air. But in my experience, the vast majority of questions that we get live on air, I should be able to answer those live whilst you're talking to me on air. The number that you'll be able to call on will be appearing at the bottom of your screen. Now, as always, we normally discuss an area which is of interest, an area of law which is of interest to you, our viewers. Over the last few weeks, we've looked at a number of issues surrounding EU law, particularly relating to European citizens, family members of European citizens, and how they now need to apply under this new scheme that's been introduced by the government. And over the last few weeks we've looked at that in a lot of detail, and even the lawyers who practice in immigration law will confirm that there's certainly been a peak in terms of the number of queries that people are getting on EU settlement. What do EU citizens have to do? How do they secure their rights to live in the United Kingdom? What happens to their family members? What's the impact of Brexit? What's going to happen if they want to call their husbands, wives, children over from abroad if they're not here already? So because I've looked at that subject in a lot of detail over the last few weeks, I'm not going to cover that today, but I merely say that that is still a very topical subject, and if our viewers have any questions relating to that, please do give us a ring and we can have a discussion in relation to your concerns. Now, this is a topic, today's topic is going to relate to settlement applications, but let me just take my first call for the day and then we'll return to the topic for today. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Ji, thank you for calling. Ji, what's your question?
Am I speaking to the lawyer?
You are. You're live on air. Yep, so fire away, please.
Okay. Yep. My question is that I have been charged with forged prescription case.
Okay.
11 years ago, I was charged with abuse of prescription.
Okay.
And was given 6 months suspended sentence. I was on probation.
Okay.
After 12 years now, again, I recently I was arrested at Boots Chemist with forged prescription case.
Okay.
And I was given a simple caution at the police station.
I understand, yep.
So last week at Boots, at the Tesco, I presented again a fake forged prescription, and I was not arrested, but the pharmacy reported to the police. I came home, then a police officer came to my house 3 days ago, and he said that they will watch CCTV, and if they figure me out in the CCTV, then they will call me to the police station for interview, and probably then I'll go to the court. I want to ask, it's a case of repeated criminal charges of forged prescriptions. What will be the outcome this time? I think I'll have a very bad penalty this time.
Okay.
Can I have an idea?
Okay. In terms of the value of the prescription that we're talking about, have they given you an indication as to what the value of the potential fraud is? Is it one prescription?
This time it was a prescription for gabapentin. It's used as a painkiller at the moment.
Okay.
And it was £21 on the private prescription.
Okay, all right, okay. Look, obviously the police are concerned because it's a fraud on the NHS.
Yeah, it's a fraud.
It's a fraud on the NHS. So obviously there's a concern about that. And
no, it's not on NHS. I think it was a private prescription.
All right, okay, right. So potentially it's the government that loses out. Now, as far as you're concerned, hopefully, from what you've said, it sounds like there isn't a history of offending as such. These seem to be one or two matters that have arisen in the last few years. The last sort of incident as such occurred, I think you've said about 11 years ago. After that,
12 years ago.
12 years ago, and after that, you've been in the clear.
And then after 12 years,
Yes.
I was given a simple caution again.
Yes. So
12 years ago, I was on probation, and then after 12 years, I was given a caution. And they said if it's repeated, then you'll have to go to the court. So I'm afraid that what sort of sentence will I get this time?
Look, to me, it sounds like the likelihood is the court will deal with you slightly more harshly on this occasion. So it may be a fine, and in addition to that, they may look at some form of community service. But if they did look at community service, it wouldn't be, when it comes to community service, it all depends on the number of hours that you need to do. Now, bearing in mind this is the first time they might ask you to or require you to do community service, in terms of the hours, they may well be at the lower end. Now, so if the magistrates take the view that you should be dealt with more harshly, then it is likely to be a financial penalty, and it's likely to be a community service on this occasion. Now, it shouldn't be...
Not a custodial sentence. I'm 65-year-old.
No.
I have a lot of health problems, and...
I understand. I think bearing in mind the low value of the if we call it the fraud, the low value that we're talking about, bearing in mind in terms of your criminal history, if we call it that.
I've never harmed anyone. It was only for personal use. And the value has not been much on the cost of the prescription.
But it may be, when you're called to attend the police station, try and make sure you do take a lawyer with you.
Yeah, I've spoken to the lawyer, and when I get a telephone call from the police, when they see me in the CCTV,
sure, okay,
and then they will call me for interview at the police station, and I will arrange a lawyer and take him with me.
Okay.
Then I think they will send me to the court. I will plead guilty,
yes,
and
I understand that. But the reason I'm saying take the lawyer with you is I don't think it's possible, but a lawyer might be able to persuade the police to give you a caution again. Now, you've got to look at your circumstances. If there are particular reasons as to why you've done that, maybe there are financial problems, maybe there are health problems, maybe there are other pressures within the family, etc. Now, if the lawyer can convince the police that, look, we know that a caution was offered recently, and it's unusual to be offered a caution again, but there are quite exceptional circumstances. The police could give you another caution. Now, if they don't, I think your approach is right.
I don't think they... do you think they can give a second caution at the police station?
It's entirely up to them. There's nothing in law which says a second caution can't be given. But what I'm saying is you could get a lawyer to try and demonstrate to the police that there are exceptional circumstances here. But let's assume that they don't give you a caution. Your approach is right. You know what, you admit your guilt at the police station.
Yes.
You plead guilty at the magistrate's court, and you get your lawyer to present your mitigating circumstances. And I don't think, from what you've said...
I'm very scared of a custodial sentence because I'm 65-year-old on pension credit, a lot of health problems, and...
Look, to me, it doesn't sound like this is something that will result in a custodial sentence. It's likely to be a fine.
Fine.
And worst case scenario, they might give you community service. If they do, they do. But to me, it doesn't sound at all like something which results in a custodial sentence.
Okay.
But thank you very much for your call. I
Thank you very much.
Things work out okay for you.
Bye.
Bye. Hope things work out for you. Let's take our next call. Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, the call's been dropped. Sorry, you've had to wait a while to contact us. But the number that you can call on appears at the bottom of the screen. Now, Just before we took the call, I was explaining that today's topic, something that I want to look at, is settlement applications. Now, over the last few shows, we've looked at how you make a successful spouse application to call your husband or wife to the United Kingdom. We've looked at how you extend your stay in the United Kingdom. What I want to do today is look at settlement applications. This is not something that we've looked at before. The reason really for touching upon this subject is I do find that a lot of clients who come to see me who might be here on a spouse visa, they've now spent 4 or 5 years in the United Kingdom, and they're looking at applying for indefinite leave to remain in the United Kingdom. They're sort of at the final stage of the application process. A lot of clients seem to be under the misapprehension that it's quite easy to obtain indefinite leave to remain, and in particular they seem to be under the misunderstanding that there are no financial requirements that need to be met. Some of them are unsure about English requirements that need to be met as well. So what I want to do is just go through that process of how you apply for indefinite leave to remain in the United Kingdom successfully. Now, the key point really with these applications is preparation. It's best, in my experience, not to leave things to the last minute. If you speak to your lawyer well in advance of the deadline for applying, your lawyer would be able to advise you on what the current law is. The lawyer will also be able to guide you in terms of what you need to do in order to make sure that maybe 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line, when you apply for your indefinite leave to remain, that application will be successful. So the key thing is, with all immigration matters, particularly where you've got deadlines, where you've got visas expiring, the key thing is seek advice well in advance, because there are a lot of ways of getting around any problems that you have if you've sought advice well in advance. So give you an example. Somebody who is in employment, not earning enough money, if you've seen your lawyer well in advance, he'll be able to guide you in terms of how you can meet the financial requirement by way of savings, by way of an additional job, etc. If you leave it too late and you go to see your lawyer just a couple of weeks before the visa expires, that obviously causes difficulties. There's insufficient time to do anything. So the key starting point is seek advice well in advance. The second point is under the current rules, you have to make sure that you're very clear about when your visa is going to end. And in terms of the expiry of the visa, you have to make sure that any application that you wish to make is made prior to your visa expiring, because previously the Home Office had a lot of flexibility. They'd give you 28 days even after your visa had expired to submit your application, and they wouldn't penalize you. That no longer applies. Where your visa is going to expire, and there's a particular date when it expires, you have to make sure that your application is submitted either on the expiry date or before the visa expires. So that's the second key point. One is get advice as soon as possible. Secondly, bear in mind what your expiry date is and ensure that your application is made either on the expiry date or preferably well before the expiry date. There are just a couple of pointers in terms of those who are coming up to their visa expiry. Now, the key issue really with settlement applications, whether somebody is here in the UK as a spouse or whether they're here in some other category, in the vast majority of applications, there will be quite specific requirements that will need to be met. So it's never going to be the case of simply applying or paying the fee and having your application processed. So if we focus today on those who are here on a spouse visa and they've coming up to their 5 years in the United Kingdom and they need to apply for settlement, what are the key requirements? Well, the key requirements are obviously going to be one is the relationship. Obviously, the spouse application settlement application is based on the parties being together. So the key issue is going to be the relationship must still be subsisting. We'll look at that in greater detail. The other key factor which causes a problem is that there will be a financial requirement that will need to be met. And the Final key factor that causes a problem is that there is an English language requirement. So normally in a settlement application, those are the three things that you are looking at: the relationship, income, finances, and then finally English. So there are three key matters that you will need to address. Now obviously there are other requirements such as submitting your passport, submitting your marriage certificate, etc. They normally in practice don't present you with a problem. Let's look at the first key issue, which is the relationship. Obviously a spouse application is an application based on a relationship between husband and wife, and understandably the Home Office wants confirmation that an application for settlement where you're saying that you are together, husband and wife are together, the Home Office understandably wants some proof of the relationship. If there is insufficient proof of the relationship, or if the marriage has broken down, then obviously this route is not the ideal route or the correct route for somebody to apply for settlement. In those circumstances, you have to look at alternative routes, which we will look at. So in a standard case where the 5-year visa is coming to an end, the parties are living together, how does one prove to the Home Office that the relationship between the husband and wife, the relationship is subsisting? Now, as far as the Home Office is concerned, they essentially just look at one type of documentary evidence. What the Home Office wants to see is that if the parties are living together, then the Home Office wants to see that the husband and wife, both parties, have been receiving correspondence, have been receiving bills at the same address where they say they are living. So if somebody is making an application now in 2019, the Home Office will generally want to know what the position has been for the last 2 years or for the last 2.5 years. So the Home Office will want to look at where you've been receiving your bills for the year 2017, for the year 2018, and obviously part of 2019 as well. So that's the kind of period that the Home Office is looking at, the last 2 to 2.5 years. Now, what kind of documents can you submit? Well, anything with a name and address on it for the applicant, for your spouse, and if you've got children, you can put in documents for your children as well to show that you've all been living together at the same address. So that's the first key step, the relationship. I'll look at that in greater detail after I've taken the next call. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
वालेकुम सलाम
जी, thank you for calling. जी, what's your question?
मेरा क्वेश्चन था, जब ब्रिटिश जो नेशनल लोग हैं जब बाहर जाते हैं अब्रॉड, एनी टाइम पीरियड से कि वो 1 साल रह सकते हैं, 2 साल
जी जी
स्टे कर सकते हैं?
जी, इसमें है ना वो उसकी नेशनलिटी हो गई, उसकी ब्रिटिश पासपोर्ट उसको मिल गया है, तो जिसको ब्रिटिश पासपोर्ट जो मिल जाता है ना, नेशनलिटी जिसके पास है, उसके लिए कोई टाइम लिमिट्स नहीं है।
वो मतलब 1 साल रह सकता है, 2 साल भी अब्रॉड में
जी, बिकॉज वो नेशनलिटी है, आप है ना, यू नेवर लूज दैट नेशनलिटी। तेरा बहुत कम सिचुएशंस है, जैसे वेरी सीरियस क्रिमिनल, अगर कोई ने कोई क्राइम कमिट किया है, बहुत सीरियस क्राइम है, तब ही वो नेशनलिटी वो आपकी रिवोक कर सकते हैं। मगर जनरली स्पीकिंग नेशनलिटी के बारे में आप 1 साल, 2 साल, 3 साल, 5-10 years बाहर जा सकते हैं, इसमें कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होता।
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you very much for your call. So just on that point, in terms of what the caller was asking, generally speaking, as far as nationality is concerned, your absence from the United Kingdom won't affect your nationality. You won't lose your nationality if you stay away from the United Kingdom, whether it's for a year, 10 years or 20 years. There are very limited circumstances in which you can lose your nationality, and they are where somebody commits a very serious criminal offence, which you might have seen in the news, where the Home Secretary has the power to revoke someone's nationality, but those are very extreme cases. What we do need to bear in mind is where somebody doesn't have nationality, but they only have indefinite leave to remain, which is what we're talking about today. How do you obtain indefinite leave to remain? So in the situation where you don't have nationality, you only have indefinite leave to remain in the United Kingdom. Now for that, there is a possibility of your indefinite leave to remain lapsing or being cancelled if you stay outside the United Kingdom for 2 years or more. So if you have indefinite leave to remain, it is important that you come back to the United Kingdom. If you've gone abroad, if you must come back to the United Kingdom, even if it's just for 1 day within a 2-year period. Now if you stay outside the UK and all you've got is indefinite leave to remain, not nationality, if you stay outside the United Kingdom for 2 years or more, you are likely to lose your indefinite leave to remain, which obviously can have quite a serious impact on your future plans. If you wanted to come back to the United Kingdom, you'd have to reapply from the start, and that can cause a lot of headache. So there is a difference between indefinite leave to remain and nationality. As far as nationality is concerned, you generally won't lose your nationality by staying away from the United Kingdom for a considerable period of time. So indefinite leave to remain is obviously what we're talking about, and in particular indefinite leave to remain based on a spousal relationship. And what I was saying is that there are 3 key things that you need to look at when you look at making an indefinite leave to remain application where it's based on somebody having a spouse visa. You look at the relationship, you look at finances, and you look at the English language requirement. Now on the relationship front, I'll come back to this after I've taken the next call. Hello, अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
हेलो वालेकुम सलाम
जी।
मैंने पूछना था इंडेफिनेट के लिए सेम डे के लिए सर्विस है अभी?
जी, इंडेफिनेट के लिए है। वो किस टाइप का इंडेफिनेट है? वो शादी
स्पाउस वीजा का शादी वाला जी।
जी 100% वो इंडेफिनेट लीव के लिए वो है, मगर उसने अभी सिस्टम थोड़ी सी चेंज की है। सो वो अभी सब उसने ऑनलाइन कर दिया है। ऑनलाइन एप्लीकेशन करेंगे, फ़ी पे कर देंगे। फ़ी पे करने के बाद सेपरेट अपॉइंटमेंट बुक करना पड़ेगा वीज़ा सेंटर में। समटाइम्स वो स्ट्रेट अवे अपॉइंटमेंट नहीं मिलता, 1 और 2 वीक्स वेट करना पड़ता है। मगर जब आपका अपॉइंटमेंट आप जब बुक करते हैं ना, तो विदिन 24 आवर्स वो आपको डिसीजन दे देते हैं। इवन स्पाउस एप्लीकेशन के लिए भी है। अभी बहुत एक्सपेंसिव है। उसने अभी £800 की फ़ी उसने ये फ़िक्स की है नेक्स्ट डे सेम डे सर्विस के लिए। एडिशनल £800 की फ़ी है उसके लिए।
पार्ट ऑफ दैट ओरिजिनल फी?
हाँ, in addition to the original fee. So yeah, okay. So
what's the original fee?
The original fee at the moment is £2,400, just under £2,400, and then if you want to do the next day service, an additional £800 on top of that, and that obviously takes it up to about £3,200 roughly.
Okay. If we send it normal, like how long they take?
Normal, it's not too bad. Approximately about 3 months, maximum about 4 months, because these are generally straightforward cases and they are processed quite quickly. 3 to 4 months is what you're looking at normally.
Okay. Once we send that indefinite, and if that like if a job lost or anything, that affects that?
No, it doesn't affect at all, because the job only has to be valid at the time you apply. If you lose the job after the application is submitted, it doesn't affect you at all. But thank you very much for your call. If you've got any more questions or concerns, please ring us back after the short break that we're now going to.